You don't stumble upon greatness. It's intentional. It's intentional. And so I pray that spiritual intentionality comes into your life and covenant intentionality comes into your life, because 100 years from right now, it will be all that matters.
If you would like weekly content that builds your faith and helps you walk out all that God has for your life, subscribe and be a part of Life Family.
You know, school year kind of gets us back in a more serious mode and schedules and so forth. And I don't know that any of us know what we're doing. I found this meme on social media. It says, I used to think high schoolers were so grown up until I was one. Then college kids were so cool and put together until I was one. The adults knew everything, and now let me tell you, no one knows anything. We're all just winging it. You ever feel like that? Like, I think I'm just winging it. Well, I want to talk about how not to wing it so much. On some things you can, but on this one, very important that you get this right, and it is your legacy. What will they say after you have left? What legacy did you leave? This past week, I said goodbye to my dad, 83-year-old and 10-month father, Kenneth Phillips, and he put a great deal of he left a great legacy, and in me and my children, my grandchildren, 55 years of pastoring and evangelist all over the world 2 times, and just a tremendous father. And he taught me this lesson, and this is the lesson I want you to learn today as we go back to school. Intentionality creates legacy. Say it with me. Intentionality creates legacy. You can't accept your life. You have to lead your life. And accepting your life or leading your life falls into 2 categories, repairing or preparing. A lot of us spend a lot of times repairing relationships, repairing choices we wish we had made or we didn't make. Preparing, though, is where you are highly intentional about acquiring a skill set, honing your craft, being healthy in your relationships, and embracing life, because it comes at you pretty fast. But if you're preparing for life, you won't spend as much time repairing. Preparing. This is what my dad always taught me. Son, always be prepared. And so one day we were at a large church conference. There were several thousand people there, and he sat on the front row, and I sat beside him. I was 10, maybe 10 years old. And the speaker was up there, and there was a gentleman who was hosting the service, and he said, my dad leaned over to me and said, what would you say if they called you up there right now? I said, well, the first thing I would ask is, where's the restroom? Because there's about to be an accident. Well, what he was teaching me is, if they called on you right now, Randy, what would you say? And so I've had that motto in me, not just about being called upon to say something, but called upon how to do life well. And you lead it well with intentionality. Nobody stumbles into greatness. Nobody stumbles into legacy. Nobody stumbles into a life of impact. It's just so consistent. Significance does not come from what you do occasionally, but what you do consistently. Great intentionality. In Luke 9:51, it was said of Jesus, he was so intentional about everything he did. And in Luke 9:51, he said he set his face toward Jerusalem. The intentionality of Jesus. This is where I'm going. Excellence is never an accident. It's always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. I love this. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. Here's what I want you to get, students, and everybody else who's a student in life. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. And when we talk about back to school, we want to make sure we're making the right choices. For some of you, back to school finds yourself in a different place. Maybe you're starting in a new job, or maybe a new relationship, or a new marriage, or maybe you just had a baby, or you've got a child going into kindergarten. That's always so precious. And, parents sort of get poignant about that, like, oh, it's a rite of passage going to kindergarten. Maybe your child starting high school as a freshman, or maybe they're a senior this year, or maybe they're moving away to go to college and you find yourself an empty nester. Whatever stage of life you're in, be intentional. Have intentionality. Scripture talks a lot about intentionality when it comes to parenting students. It's called the Shema. Everyone say Shema. See, you just learned your first Hebrew word today, Shema. This is something that all practicing Jews know from Deuteronomy 6:5-9. It's called the Shema. It says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. That's just about everything, isn't it? Watch how these words that Moses uses are commanding words. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall. So there's 6 shalls in these just little 5 scriptures. You shall teach them diligently to your children. All right, parents, there's your first assignment. You shall teach the words of the Lord diligently to your children. So sometimes we think church is, here, student pastor, church leaders, Sunday school, you have the job of doing spiritual education for my kids, and I just do life with them at home. But really, that thing is backwards. The parents are supposed to be teaching about the things of God, and the church is the celebration point where we celebrate what you've taught all week. Nothing. All right. All right, so parents, diligently teach your children. Well, when do we do that? Well, Moses is going to tell you. You shall talk to them when you sit in your house. So when you're sitting around. When you walk by the way, when you're walking, when you're going places, when you're driving, when you lie down. So that's right before bedtime, I suppose. And when you rise, maybe that's breakfast. And then Moses says, bind them, you shall bind them as a sign on your hand. And they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. This entire passage is about high intentionality. So intentional about parents instilling into their children, as they're still wet cement, the things and virtues of knowing God. So this creates an intentional spiritual legacy. I think every parent would want their child to follow Jesus Christ. I think every parent wants their child to continue to be in church and around church. But the statistics, and I won't get into them today, they're depressing. But when your child goes off to college, there's that turning, and you've done everything you could at that point to instill spiritual disciplines in their life and a love for God as you diligently teach your children. But when they get off to college, them coming back to church, well, it's not good right now, but I think we're going to turn that around. And many parents, as you see, I want my kids to love the Lord, to serve the Lord, as my forefathers did. But a lot of parents think, I don't have the skill set to do it. I don't know how to do it. So I'm supposed to do this? What do I do? Well, here's the first thing you want to know. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So just start. Spiritual legacy is just bite size. You just start doing spiritual things around your children, and you make spirituality a priority. Stephen Covey, the great leadership author, publisher, speaker, said the key is not to prioritize your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. Everything is going to be calling for your schedule as school starts. What are your priorities? Make sure they're scheduled. If you showed me your calendar, I could tell you what you value because it keeps showing up. So, parents, here are 3 things I want to tell you real quick of how to diligently teach your children about spiritual things that create a spiritual legacy. First of all, prayer. Pray with your children before bedtime. Pray with your children at meals. Model praying. Don't let prayer be a stranger in your house. In fact, let your kids catch you praying in the living room, kneeling down. Let your kids catch you, mom and dad, praying together. Pray. Parents, pray over your children. There is no defense for your prayers. Pray for their choices, pray for their friends, pray for their peers, pray for their teachers. Parents, get in them the ability to pray and then call on them to pray and applaud them and affirm them as they pray. It's beautiful. Read the Word of God together. I wouldn't just grab a Bible and start reading it. I would get a children's Bible or a teen Bible and just start there. You'll be surprised what a children's Bible can teach you as an adult. And these stories are phenomenal. Just start reading them and read them to your children. And then the third thing I would say is others' awareness. Life isn't only about you, and it's not only about our family, but what are we doing for others? So teach your children to look for the lonely people in the cafeteria, sitting by themselves with a tray. I don't, what am I supposed to do about that? Well, you go over there and you talk to them. Maybe their first year at the school, maybe they just moved here they have no friends. But you teach your children about others' awareness. But listen, parents, if you can only choose one discipline, choose this one. Go to church. If you can only choose one discipline, go to church and make attending corporate worship the top priority of your family, just as you have done today. Church is not optional. We're going to church. If we're in town, we're going to church. Deuteronomy 5:2, Old Testament. Observe the Sabbath day, keep it holy. Holy means set apart. As the Lord your God commanded you. The Lord says, I want you in my house together with all my children. Then when you jump over to the New Testament, Hebrews 5:25, it says, not neglecting to meet together is the habit of some of you, or some of you neglectful about meeting together, but encouraging one another, all the more as you see the day drawing near. The day meaning the coming of the Lord, which I believe is very near. I see some of you parents coming in here with your kids, all of you that got into the room today. I mean, it's hard to get to church. I see you coming in with multiple children and you're just dragging one of them, and one of them's just laid out on the floor on their back screaming, and that's your spouse. I mean, it's tough, but that's the whole point, isn't it? The effort that it takes to get to church. If you show and model your kids, it takes effort, and it's important to our family. Phillips is go to church. Phillips is go to church. Even when I'm on vacation, even when I'm not here, Phillipses are in church. We're in church because God asked us to be. It's hard. And getting those small children out the door, getting your teenager out the door, it's tough. Getting yourself out the door is tough, but it's so worth it. That's a great spiritual discipline that creates spiritual legacy. Joshua 24:15 says, but if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether it's the gods of your ancestors, serve beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you're living. And then he makes this declaration, but as for me and my household, we're going to do what? And that's what we need you to do, parents. We need you to stand up and say, I know you had a late night. I know we just got in, but we are going to church. Intentional. Intentional living is the art of making your own choices before others' choices make us. If you don't have strong boundaries for this thing of church, someone else will move those boundaries for you. Now let me make you uncomfortable for just a minute, all right? That all right? Thank you. Advanced sports leagues on Sunday morning. Oh, yeah. About to step on those toes. Somebody who did not have a value of church attendance said, I don't know who upstream, how far it went, but said, why don't we use Sunday morning to do these advanced sports leagues? And there was a whole bunch of parents that think their son is messy, whatever how you pronounce it. And he's not. But there's a whole bunch of parents, instead of pushing back and saying, oh no, Phillipses go to church. We're going to be, Smiths go to church. Troxclairs go to church. If the church doors are open, we're going to be found in the church on Sunday morning. So I believe my child is talented. I wish they were in your league. If you can find another day, we'll be there, but Sunday morning is off limits. And parents, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, you're going to look back on that choice as one of the best choices you ever made. I love my dad. He taught me so much. Intentionality creates legacy. He was such an intentional man when it came to spiritual legacy in me, and I pray I'm passing it down to my children. But I would say another thing about this back to school legacy is intentional covenant legacy. That one's so important. I love the relationship my dad had with my mother. 2 years ago, I lost my mother, and then this week, past week, my dad. And I just think about their romance, and it was just beautiful. I think they got married 18, 19, and 60 plus years of marriage. It was it was something wonderful to watch. It was modeled for me. They were fun. they were romantic. My dad was a great romantic. He would leave notes, for my mom in the sugar bowl or wherever, like, you're my sugar. Just gross stuff like that. Just disgusting. They were, public displays of affection, and you're like, ugh. Listen, parents, let me tell you something, parents. If you haven't grossed your kids out yet, you need to start. Now come on now, not too much, but gross them out. You want them to see extreme affection, kissing and all that wonderful stuff. If you get your covenant right at the beginning of school, a healthy plant will grow. You and your spouse having a healthy covenant is the soil for bringing up healthy plants. Healthy plants cannot grow in toxic soil. You've got to get that right. You're like, well, they don't know that, we're going to stay together till the kids get out of school. Oh, they know. They know. It's not even what you say. It's an atmosphere. Make sure the soil is healthy. Couples, when the minister asked you and your spouse your vows, you didn't say, I'll try. You said, I do. I do. And so go and do. Do these things. Find the balance between your children and your marriage. It's so easy to focus all your focus on the kids all the time because, and some of you with multiple children, I mean, it's just chaos. And they're going here and there and everywhere, and you've got schedules, and oh my goodness, life is breaking out. And sometimes when we, at these back-to-school moments, after you find your rhythm, make sure that you're including your spouse because sometimes the over-attention that we give our kids comes at the expense of the person that we love the most. Busy seasons in life are no excuse not to date your spouse. You should have a date night. You should find each other for lunch sometimes. Go on coffee breaks together. Pray together. Find the balance between your children and your marriage. Secondly, manage the family calendar. That calendar of yours is about to get very, very busy. This is a recurring challenge at back to school with the increased planning and coordination of this one needs to be here, that one there. Pick this one up after school, that one has after hours. You know, it's crazy. You are an Uber driver with no pay. And the family calendar, even if you're a single adult who's romantic with someone or you're newly married, you don't have children, calendaring can cause major conflict because in the calendar there is an expectation that I thought you were going to pull more of your weight here. I thought you were going to get more involved. I thought you were going to help me. And but here's what I know for sure from marriage: people cannot live up to expectations they don't know have been set for them. So you have to get together at the family calendar and say, all right, let's talk about this and who is responsible for what, and work it out like that. And make sure when you're calendaring, you have time for spiritual intimacy and physical intimacy. We need healthy marriages and covenants that create healthy soil for these tender plants to grow. Last, make time to communicate. That might sound like, well, a given. Well, of course, we're going to make, no, it really isn't. Sometimes that we are giving our spouse the leftovers when we come home from a very busy day, a lot of customers, clients, deal making, working late hours, and you come in, you're exhausted, the kids have to be tended to, and what you're giving your spouse is just fumes. It's just leftovers. You don't have any words left. You don't have any love left. Oh, well, you have love left, but you don't have any passion left, no energy left. And so you have to make time to communicate. It has to be very intentional. You need to have open and honest conversations with each other without the disruption of technology. Put your phone away. Pew Research study found that 51% of couples who took the poll said their spouse is more interested in their phone than them. I know he's not talking about you. This was a poll done to other people outside of Central Texas. He's not talking about you. When you're having a conversation with someone you love or someone that's important to you, don't look down at your phone. Keep eye contact. What you're saying to this person by keeping eye contact is, you're very important to me. When you're looking down at your phone while they're talking, what you're conveying to them without words is, you're not nearly as important as to whatever I'm looking at on this phone. So children, students, when you're talking to mom and dad, put your phone away. As a matter of fact, at the dinner table, for those of you that still eat dinner together, do something that we call a phone stack. You ever heard of a phone stack? Everybody brings their phone and stacks it on top of the other one, and we sit it over there. Because the most important people that we ever want to be with are around this table. And everything else over there can wait. You are so quiet today. Are you okay? It's back to school. Parents, I also would encourage you that before your middle schooler and your high schooler goes to bed at night, you take their phones and iPads and so forth and put them on the kitchen counter and let them charge up. But everything, all technology goes on the counter here at bedtime. None of the kids like me today. That's all right. I love you. Make time to communicate. Make time to communicate. Talk openly about how you're feeling. I feel overwhelmed. I feel I don't have enough. Just all those things. Talk about it. Talk about it. You will never regret investing in your wonderful spouse. If you're a single adult, your spouse one day. It's an investment, and it's so worth it. Saying goodbye to my mom and dad, I know they're together now, and they're worshiping the Lord together. And this is one of my favorite pictures of my mom and dad, is them worshiping the Lord together with their eyes closed, because, you know, when your eyes are closed, you feel like that's more reverent. And also when your eyes are closed, you're thinking, you know, you're imagining what it would be like to see the Lord. But their eyes are not closed today. They're together, and they see the Lord face to face. And their legacy, and the legacy they left here, could only be done with high intentionality. You don't stumble upon greatness. It's intentional. It's intentional. And so I pray that spiritual intentionality comes into your life, and covenant intentionality comes into your life, because 100 years from right now, it will be all that matters.
Thank you so much for being a part of our service today. And we hope and pray that this message touched your heart. And we want to hear from you. We want to get to know you. There are several links below this video that you can connect and let us know what's going on in your life. So we would love to invite you to do that. But most importantly, if you made a decision to follow Jesus today, that is amazing, and we want to celebrate you. I invite you to text Next Steps to 22999. We'll respond with a text and give you some resources and next steps for your faith journey. So we just celebrate you and want to invite you to do that. Thank you so much for making this decision to follow Jesus. It's amazing. So thank you again for being a part of our service today. We will see you next time.
If you don't have a home church, we would love to invite you to be part of LifeFamily. Remember, you belong here. Join us again next Sunday or anytime throughout the week. Hit that bell so you never miss when we post a new video. Hope to see you again soon.